everybody, Joe here, and I've got something fun to share with you today. In fact, let's go to a full screen on Lightroom here, and I have this kind of odd panoramic I took of the big boy Locomotive when I was in Scranton at Steamtown, and you can see from front to back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, what I did was I just had my handheld camera. I didn't even have my tripod with me. It wasn't my plan for the day. But I saw this enormous thing and I decided, how can I do a pano? However, if I was going to just stand in the middle and pan left to right, I didn't think it was going to look right because I was going to get a lot of curvature in it. So what I did was I walked along so that on each shot I could be kind of perpendicular to what I was shooting at. Still didn't completely work, as you see with the stairs there. And I figured, all right, let me just do this and then I'll bring it into Lightroom and do a panorama. And something interesting happened. Watch this. I'll go to Photo-Merge Panorama with the 6 shots selected. And look at that. Lightroom can't even merge them. It says not enough matching photos for merging, which is silly because I was able to do it manually, but I had to bring it into Photoshop to do that. So here's what I would do. First, I'll do the basics in Lightroom. I'm looking at the shadows, and the exposure is great. If you look at the histogram, let's go in the Develop module here. All right, so let's look at the histogram, and yeah, we've got a little blowout in the sky, but kind of who cares? It was a snowy day, and there's fine in the shadows, but the deep shadows still look a little too dark for me. So let's bring those up. Let's bring the highlights down to kind of flatten things out. That made it a little flat, but let's add some clarity. Let's add a little dehaze to add a little depth. Color really doesn't matter. Well, we'll go ahead and add a little saturation and vibrance. And what else? I could add some texture, but I can do that later. I think exposure-wise, that's pretty good. Maybe I'll add a little more contrast and actually bring the exposure down just to open up some of the details. And here, then I will go to Sync and apply all of these. We'll just do a check all and tell it to synchronize them. So now all of the shots have the same, theoretically, exposure. Okay. Now, what I ran into was bringing this into Photoshop was they didn't exactly line up because I was walking along. So let's go ahead and send all of these into Photoshop. I'll hit the G so I have all the images shown and go to Photo, Edit in Photoshop. All right, so now I can see I've got all of the images here opened up in Photoshop. Here they all are. And let's make sure they all fit. Just hit Command 0, or I can just hit F key so that, let's do that back. Okay, don't need the rulers. Let's get rid of the rulers. Command R, they can go away. So here's our shot. So what I'm going to do is focus on just the first two. I want to get these first two lined up. And you can see when I shot the first one, it seems to be curving up a little bit. So let's try something. Let's go into Photoshop and see if all of these images can be merged and watch what happens. In Photoshop, you do it here. Go to File, Automate, Photomerge. Now what I could try Auto. Let's try Auto. And I'll just say add the open files, and there's my 6 shots from the train. Let's hit OK. So Photoshop's going to do its thing. It's going to see how it can do its panoramic merge. And let's see if Photoshop works. And look at that. That's a complete fail. So we'll undo, just delete that file. There's no reason to save that. That was silly. Let's try something else. Let's go to File, Automate, Photomerge, but we're just going to click on Reposition and add the open files and then hit OK. And we get the same thing. We get, other than the first two, the first 3 images, it actually did a decent job on. We could save those, but the rest of them obviously did not work. So let me show you a manual way you can do that. Obviously, there's a train here because I remember photographing a train. So let's not save that. I'm just going to take the first 2. And I'm going to zoom. Actually, I'm going to zoom out first. I'm going to make this small. I'm going to move this over here, hit the crop key, and I'm simply going to just do that. I'll just make a big wide crop because there's plenty of room for the train, and then hit OK. So what I'm going to do is get the second panel just to show you one, and you would have to repeat this with each panel. I'm going to do a select all and copy it, and then go back to our first one and paste it in. So it's on its own layer now. I can just hold down Command or Control, hold down the Shift key, and then I can drag them over next to each other. All right, so for now, I don't really need this entire crop thing. So let's get rid of the rest of this, because I'm just going to show you the sample and I'll show you the final result. All right, so now we have this train. It sees there's a train there, and you can see there's some overlapping pieces. So how do we get this thing to work? Well, what I'm going to do is take the second panel, and I'm going to start to move it. So I'm going to hit the V key, which is move, and I'm going to put it over. And oh, I can kind of get it in the ballpark, but you can see we've got two things. There's actually a slight size difference. I don't know if it was me moving back or I accidentally moved the lens. So let's kind of get them over. But again, how are you supposed to find out where they line up? Well, here's a really cool trick. I used to do this all the time when I had groups of people and somebody closed their eyes and I take multiple shots and I had to replace the face on someone. It's the same technique. And you do that by coming into the layer here, and change the blending mode from normal to difference. And let's go ahead and zoom in on that. So now you can see where they overlay and where they don't fit. If I hit the V key, I can move this around. You'll see when something lines up exactly, it disappears. But in this case, it's not, because the size is slightly different. So what I'm doing is I'm using this label here, and I'm going to use the transform tool to try to scale this thing until everything kind of, pretty close anyway, blends together. So Command T is transform, and let's come over to this side, and I'm going to drag down a little bit. And oh, look what happens. Look on the top. Notice how when it starts to almost completely disappear, that means you're pretty close. Let's hit Command 0, which will allow us to fit into the frame. Let's do the same with the bottom. I'm going to drag from the bottom, and oh, look, you can see it's not going to perfectly do it because they're out of alignment. But look at the track down below over here. Notice how it's starting to line up. So I've got that lined up. You can see this little top bump on the front of the engine. Let's bring that down a little bit more so that that lines up. Okay, so notice now we've got the front of the rail right here matching. We've got the top matching. So now let's change it back to normal. And now look at that. Now they line up. So now I can just hit enter. Now, if you want to smooth things out, what you can do is blend the two of them. So on the second one, I'm going to add a mask. Yes, we know it's a mask. And click on the mask. Let's go to single layer on our menu again. I'm going to flip black and white, get a brush. Let's make a little bigger brush. Something about, let's do something like that. Let's try about 70%. And I'm going to paint on the mask at the interface. I'll bring the trees back, and just the spots that seem to not quite line up. Actually, that was about it. Really just right here through the center of the boiler and these trees, and then that looks pretty good. So now if we turn this on and off, you can see there's a slight difference. There's a problem right here as well. So I'm going to hit 0 to make the brush 100%, and I'm going to just move this one little piece. For some reason, again, the perspective changed somehow where I moved. So let's just put that back so that that all agrees from front to back. And we'll do it right through there as well. And now when we turn it on and off, you can see, yes, there's a little movement. And there's a little bit right here as well. We'll keep doing that until the movement's gone. Yep, I can live with that. And I certainly want to have just one of these nameplates. Yeah, again, is it perfect? No. In fact, let's go ahead and do the top of this. Let's fix that as well. Get those trees to agree. Oh, we lost a spot here, so I hit X to go white to bring these trees back. Apparently I was in an overlap spot. So you can have to play back and forth until you get what it is you want. And there we go. And you have to do that now for each of the shots. And let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and crop just what we've got so far. I'll bring that up on the top, on the bottom rather. Not going to need all that top. We can come into the back here as well. And now you can see we've got, even though there's a change in perspective because of me moving, and that's what happened, because even though I'm looking at this from left to right, I'm kind of focused, standing right here, perpendicular to this, the perspective changes as it goes off to either side. So now I'm in the middle of this one, so there's the perspective slightly different, but it does work, and that's the procedure. Do this change from normal to difference, and you can see the blending modes and all going on right now. But that's how you can see underneath when you're trying to line something up. And you can take something really off like this and get it to work. And I can prove it to you, because let's jump back into Lightroom and take a look at the final. Here's one that I had a little extra crop in. Let's go to full screen there. I add a little black. Oops, I hit C instead of R. That's the problem going from Lightroom to Photoshop. Lightroom crop is R, Photoshop it is C. So I hit enter right there. Let's go to full screen, and you can see there's the entire engine. So yes, the entire thing was there, and we were able to do a panoramic of the big boy, but there was no way Lightroom or Photoshop could automatically put the thing together. So if you really want it, and you've got something like this, that's a way that you can do that. Just use the difference blending mode to line things up. You can then use transform to bend and size things where you need to. And there you go. You have a spectacular shot. In fact, let's see how big this thing is. Let's go out of full screen. Yeah, you can see this is now 11,000 pixels wide. That would make one heck of a print. In fact, let's see. How big could I make that? 11,000. Let's see. 11,000. Let's say we want to print at, 240 dpi. At 240 dpi would make a 46-inch print. Really, what do you need? Oh, like 180. And by the way, if you're going to use a canvas print, canvas is only printed at 150. So let's see what a canvas print would be. Yeah, 73-inch photo, which would be pretty cool if you're really into trains or whatever you're into. If you've got some kind of big thing like this that you want to capture and Lightroom or Photoshop won't Pano it for you, there's a way to override and do it manually. So that's it, a little composite or big composite of the big boy Locomotive. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you online again soon. Till next time, be well. Bye-bye.